What's up, everybody? So, this video is our introduction to the topic of behavioral statistics. This first video here is really just going to introduce you to this kind of general idea of what behavioral statistics is and the context in which we are going to be studying behavioral statistics throughout this semester. So here are the key concepts that we're going to be covering in this first series of videos that we're going to be have access to. Um, each video is going to break down each of these key concepts. So you'll be able to revisit the videos separately. You won't have to necessarily watch through the entire recording in order to be able to, make it to one of the points of these key concepts. I know that some of these concepts, as we are introduced to them, they may be familiar to you, whether you've used them in other courses or, maybe this isn't the first time you're taking a statistics course. My approach to the content in this class is always that everybody's coming in and we're all starting from a base level of understanding, so we have to establish that foundation. So I don't assume anybody knows anything coming in here, and so the way that this course is going to be structured is with that mindset, the idea being that we're all kind of learning this for the first time. So what's the best way that I can introduce you to these concepts to make the most sense? And so, like I said, this first video is really just kind of a brief overview, and then the subsequent videos will be getting into the thick of it with these concepts. So, becoming a social scientist, this is, when we talk about this idea of statistics, oftentimes we want to immediately get into this idea of thinking about math for the sake of math. And that's often the way that we're presented with math knowledge coming up through K through 12 systems within the United States. Not all educational experiences are going to be the same, and so there may be variations of how we've been introduced to the benefit and the value of math. There are different ways in which we can use math, and in the context that we're talking about, in this particular class, this is behavioral statistics. So the statistics that we are going to be using are going to be applied to human, social, and behavioral contexts. So I want to open up with this question. And I want you to think about this question because this is something that we all have some sort of experience with, right? So, what is dating and how do you know? Now, when I say that we all have some experience with this, I'm not necessarily saying that everybody's been on dates. I'm not necessarily saying that everybody's been on all kinds of dates. What I'm saying is, in the context of U.S. society, and even if you're coming in from outside U.S. society, in the context of a cultural setting, we have this idea of what dating is. And whether you've been on a date or you haven't, you know that there are certain ways of thinking about what dating is and what dating isn't, right? So when I ask you this question, what is dating? It's not to be, I'm not trying to oversimplify this social experience of dating, but I'm trying to get you to really break down this idea of dating into what it is, and again, what it isn't, right? So if I ask you what is dating, and I think about, when I was growing up, when I thought about dating and what it was supposed to be, I'm thinking like, back when I was in middle school or something, my interest in dating really started to develop. I'll be honest, I don't really know what I thought it was supposed to be. I know that in the 7th grade, I had my first girlfriend, and I only ever saw her at school. And at least in my 12-year-old brain, that made sense. You know what I'm saying? That was what dating was to me as a 12-year-old. growing up in the U.S., right? Dating, or at least, even we might even have to be even more specific, not even just talking about dating in the US, but this is dating in Southern California, dating in North County, San Diego, Southern California. It sounds really goofy to get that specific, but if I pose to you the question that is it possible that what dating looks like for in the mind of a 12-year-old in Southern California could look different from what dating in the mind of a 12-year-old in Georgia, or dating in the mind of a 12-year-old in Maine? I don't know, somewhere else throughout the U.S. What happens when we change up the context, even just speaking about um, the United States, and we say, what does dating look like for a 12-year-old, or what is dating in the mind of a 12-year-old in Mexico? What is dating in the mind of a 12-year-old in New Zealand? You know what I'm saying? When we start to break down this idea of dating, we start to realize that it is a much more complex idea than we might give credit to. And that's the point of approaching statistics from a behavioral science or social science perspective, right? This idea of conducting research on what this thing that we call dating is requires us to step outside of our own understanding of what it is and start to incorporate other ideas. How are different cultural expectations placed on what dating is supposed to be, or what it looks like, or who it involves, or how it proceeds, right? Being a social scientist means taking guesses about our social world and finding a way to systematically research them. We've got to be able to, again, as I mentioned, just kind of move outside of ourselves to really contemplate what this idea of dating. And again, we're talking about social experiences. We have many experiences that go outside of the realm of dating, but how do we research them? How do we take our ideas, these guesses that we're making about our social world, and apply a methodology by which we can really explore them, to seek to understand them, right? So, how do you research dating? If I were to ask students to engage in a research project where you have to go out and study this thing that's called dating, there's different ways that you might choose to do it. You might choose to interview people. You might choose to run focus groups. You might choose to use surveys to collect data. There's different ways that we can go about this. But what I really want to emphasize is the point of taking knowledge for granted, I guess you could say. We really have to monitor the way in which we understand the world around us, so that as we are talking about engaging in scientific inquiry, and in particular in a class like ours, we're talking about using effectively using numbers to try and explore some of these ideas. It's not always numbers, but that's how we're going to focus in this class. Then it stands to reason that we can explore a variety of social experiences through a behavioral statistics lens. We are going to be taking ideas, we're going to be converting them into questions, and collecting data, and then analyzing that data through the use of statistical software, and a little bit of calculating, paper and pencil kind. Okay, so I won't go too far into it here. I know that y'all are probably still wondering, okay, well, how do we get to this conclusion of what is dating? But again, I just want to leave you with this question of what is dating, and think about how you can apply this same kind of questioning to other experiences. What is dating? What is marriage? What does it mean to have a particular gender identity? What does it mean to live in to identify oneself as being, belonging to a particular political affiliation, right? There's different ways that we can explore social experiences. They are social experiences because they involve our interactions with others, and we're going to be asking these questions and exploring these questions in a, again, systematic way. So that's the point of becoming a social scientist. So that's it for this video. Again, in the following videos, we're going to be discussing the key concepts that we have for this particular module of what is behavioral statistics.